Okay, so if you're new to DIY projects or you're looking to start some sort of camper build and you want to get some tools like we all do, here are some recommendations that I have that I've learned over the past number of years working on multiple trucks, vans, cars, and renovating a complete house that I found I just reach for these tools all the time. They're worth the money, and hopefully they'll avoid you buying some more expensive tools that you don't need in the process. So, diving right in, I prefer battery tools. They are so much more convenient because you can just take them anywhere. You don't have the loud air compressor that you're listening to. If it's a pneumatic tool, you don't have a cord that you have to find a plug to. I chose DeWalt a while ago. Now I'm kind of tied into their system, and so I like them. But to dive right in, this is the first tool. It is an oscillating multi-tool. So the head of the tool oscillates back and forth, very small range of motion, and it can take any different style of blade or bit, I guess we'll call it, on there. You put it into the slot, you can adjust it to any angle, and there's a whole variety of different styles of blades. So this is just a standard metal and wood cutting blade. It is just like a little sawtooth right on the front of it. And the real nice part about these is that you can cut in tight spaces. So unlike with a circular saw or something bigger, you can just reach right down, flush with the floor, cut only the thing you're cutting, like baseboard or whatever it might be. And as you cut, you're not damaging the thing below it. So it's a very precise tool. You can also put sanding heads on this, so you can have sandpaper that's like a triangle shape, so you can sand into corners. It's really one of the most universally useful tools that I've found, especially for like home reno and DIY projects. I've had one for a while. I recently just upgraded to a battery powered because, again, cordless just gets annoying over time. So the battery power oscillating tool, especially if you're a home reno person, I think it's an absolute must-have. So the next up, if you're just getting started, is a drill, not a driver. What's the difference? A drill has a clutch, so it has an adjustable tension setting as you're screwing in. An impact has a different form of clutch, I guess, that will impact drive things in. The reason I say a drill over an impact, if you're just getting one, is primarily because of that clutch. So when you're driving a screw into the wall, you have all these different settings on the top from 1 to 15 that you can adjust the tension. So if you don't want to overdrive something into your wall and create a hole where the screw was, or you don't want to strip the screw out of the material if it's soft, you can set it to a lower number. Here's 1. As you go in, the screw tightens down, the clutch will stop turning it, and so you won't overdrive it. You can adjust it up if you want more, and it takes more to stop it, so on and so forth. And then if you are going to be driving, and then if you are going to be using drill bits like this, it has an adjustable chuck, unlike the driver that has one set size. And so you just throw it in counterclockwise, open that chuck all the way up. You can slip drill bit in, I forget the max size, and then now you have a drill. That works great. You adjust the clutch up to the drill setting so it won't stall out, and you can drill holes easily, and it has 2 speed adjustments on top. And I actually just recently switched or got a new drill, so I have 2 right now. And the reason for that is because this one came with this new fancy battery that is supposedly more powerful, and so far I agree. But then the other thing is it actually has a shorter head on it, and so if you're building like cabinets or you're working in tight spaces, well, it doesn't seem like much, being an inch shorter actually is an advantage because, again, you can just reach in tight spaces and use this in places where the prior drill was just too big. And it also has a light on it, which is incredibly convenient because when you're reaching around, you know, a sink or in a cabinet or something like that, being able to see the head of the screw that you're trying to take out or put in is really convenient. Then lastly, if you are working on projects like I don't know, automotive or anything that has like bolt heads, and you're going to be using sockets, you can get adapters like this one, which is just your standard adapter for like a ratchet. So you can get a 1/4 inch, 3/8, or 1/2 inch. Use your sockets on there. Just be sure if you are going crazy on those that you're being cognizant of the tension, and use impact sockets, which are the black ones, if you are, again, going to be going crazy on those. All right, the next one is probably one of my favorite tools and one that not many people are super familiar with, and it is a rip cut guide. So what is this? This one is made by Craig, and basically what it is a table saw replacement for somebody who only has a circular saw. So I do recommend getting a circular saw, which is just incredibly useful across the board. And so that way, when it comes time to cut straight edges for panels, whether you're building cabinets, covering walls, whatever it is, instead of having to mark and draw a straight line and then try to track it with your saw, which can be hard to get a perfectly straight edge, you can use this. The saw mounts up to this plate right here, and then it goes into this slot on this guide. I can adjust it back and forth, and that adjusts the width. And then this guide over here has a lip on it that rides on the edge of the material. So the plywood that you're cutting, you just set the width between here and your blade. That's the width of your rip cut. And then as you cut along, it just glides along and gives a nice uniform cut. There's a little bit of an art to it, but I've found over the past, I've been using this thing for like the last 5+ years, and it has been incredible. And they are so much cheaper, more compact, more portable than a table saw. And so unless you're gonna be doing a lot of ripping projects, I don't think a table saw is necessary. You can totally get away with this. All right, next up is a sander. This is a random orbital sander, which means it just moves in kind of an orbit and it's randomly patterned. So unlike a belt sander, it doesn't gouge quickly and in a very specific orientation. So it's just more forgiving. You can float around on different surfaces. You can adjust the level of sandpaper to accommodate what you need, and it's just unlikely to cause any major issues for a beginner. And so I have found that I use this thing a ton. You just Velcro the sandpaper right on the front. It has a dust collection bag, or you can hook a vacuum up to it if you have the attachment. Adjust the speed, sand away to your heart's content, and yeah, I think it's the best all-around sander for somebody who is just starting out. Okay, next up is a brad nailer. Now this one might be unnecessary for some people, but if you are connecting, if you're doing much woodworking type projects, brad nailers can be incredibly useful. And so a brad nail is a very small thin nail. This is a pack of them. Let's see if I can break them apart. So that's 4 nails together right there. And what they're used for primarily is attaching wood together that is also going to be adhered using a wood glue or an adhesive of some form. And so I guess what I use it for is things like trim, tacking, little cabinetry together, anything that needs to be held in place semi-firmly and at least as long as it takes for the adhesive to dry. And so you can get a pneumatic one that runs off of an air compressor, or you can get a battery one. I just recently upgraded to a battery one because I hate pneumatic, and I just don't use it enough to need the power that pneumatic can provide. So you can get nails that come in anywhere from, I think, like 1/2 inch all the way up to, I think, 2 inch in one of these things. And I use it all the time. I've been using it a bunch on the house recently, and while it's not totally necessary for somebody who's just starting out, you can certainly hand drive little nails. This thing is very convenient, and the battery powered version is awesome if you're to a point where you can justify this type of a tool. Next up is another Craig product, and that is a pocket hole. These are actually 2 different styles of the same thing. And so I'll just show you this one first. So a pocket hole is a hole that goes at an angle into a material and gives you a flat surface at the end of the hole to drive a screw into to grab the material and connect it to another piece of material. And so that way you aren't just driving a screw into the butt end of wood where it has easy ability to tear out, or you're not driving a screw in and causing splitting. It's just a very easy way to do joinery without having the need for fancy tools. So this one, you can see the guide right there on the end. That's the hole for the drill bit. They have a special drill bit that has a varied size on the end. It goes down smaller. So that's the part that goes all the way through the material. and then where it necks up, that's the end of the pocket itself, and you set the depth using this adjustable ring right here on the end. And so depending on your material thickness and how deep you want the hole, you adjust the stopper. As you clamp this tool onto the piece of wood, and then as you push this in, as you're drilling, you can see it pop out there, and that digs a little pocket into the wood, goes all the way through, and then once you have the pocket, you take the screw with the nice flat head on the back, you drop it into that pocket, it grabs the wood nicely and joins it to your other material. Usually you use wood glue as well with this, and this is just an alternative version of it. So you've got the same holes for the drill bits up here, the material goes right here, gets clamped into place, and the drill bit goes down inside, drills the pocket hole right there, pull it out. And I've used this thing a ton for all of the little cabinets I've built for the cars and the vans and trucks and stuff. It's just an incredibly easy way to joint things that seems very, very stable and doesn't require any of the super fancy expensive tools that professional woodworkers might use. So real quick, I want to talk about a little favorite that I've recently come across. These are Klein shears. They are like a small pair of industrial scissors, and I've used trauma shears a lot at work, and these things are way better than them. They're just like, they seem like they'll just cut anything. So I've been using them recently to cut like plastic, cloth, different things like that, where a knife just isn't as clean of a cut. These things just cut through like anything. I wouldn't even be surprised if they do thin metal. So these are an awesome little tool if you have any sort of thin material that you want to cut. Okay, next up as a DIYer is a cat's paw. This is basically a nail puller slash a lever, and so if you do find yourself in a situation where you need to remove some nails from a material, or you need to lift something up, it's nice and thin, way thinner than the back of a hammer, like your typical claw that you'd use to try to pull nails or adjust things. It doesn't have the bend, so it can just fit into tighter spots. You can shove it in if you're trying to lift something. You can shove it in, use it as a lever to lift, or you can get it under screw heads that you need to, or sorry, nail heads that you need to pull out. And you can obviously strike it in if you need to along the way. Then this thing, I'm not actually totally positive, but the way I've used it in the past, it's like a little cylinder pipe piece that sticks out. If you have a nail that is flush with the surface and you don't want to dog into your surface and carve out a big chunk, you can use that, put it around the head and just tap it down, and then that way it exposes the ring of the nail, and then you can reach it with either of the claws on either end. So a little cat's paw is extremely useful, especially for demolition work on DIY projects. Okay, and the last tool that I think is totally necessary, especially if you're doing woodworking projects, is a jigsaw. Again, I had a corded version up until a couple of months ago. I switched to a battery powered because the corded version, it's just annoying when you're going around material back and forth. I only have a couple of plugs out here, so I end up having to switch cords around constantly. And last year, while I was cutting a piece of material, the cord got wrapped underneath on the sawhorse. I cut through the cord, and then I didn't have a saw to use because I cut the cord. So anyways, the jigsaw, it is a tiny little blade. It goes up and down, removes material. The blade angle can be adjusted via this little switch on the side. The more angled back it is, the more material it removes as it comes through. So it'll cut faster, but it's usually a messier cut. More tear out on the bottom or top. So if you leave it flat, it's more likely to be a nice clean cut. You can remove the blades, switch them out for whatever material you're trying to cut, or whatever level of cleanliness you want that material or that cut to be. And you can also adjust the speed on top. And so it's just a very useful tool. You can cut through, you know, a lot of material. You can do inside corner cuts if you're doing cabinets, cutting holes, whatever. It's just an incredibly useful tool. And if you're not in a spot where you need to get like a bandsaw and whatever these other fancy tools are, you can do a lot of damage with a little jigsaw. Okay, and the last tool I'm going to talk about today is a level, which may seem dumb, but I have found, I installed Windows for a little while when I was in high school and after high school, and I found that there is a big difference between a nice level and a crap level. So if you get a cheap level, like a little plastic one, sometimes their level, the floats will actually like turn and move. They'll be bowed, they'll just be way out of plumb. And so for something that its entire purpose is to figure out how accurately level something is, it's important that you have one that has a bubble that works. And then also found that metal is kind of the only way to go, because it doesn't flex and bend like the plastic ones do. So this is super useful. Obviously you can do 45-degree angles, you can do vertical angles, you can do horizontal angles, top, bottom. And then if you do want to get super carried away and crazy, one tool that I have that I don't think is necessary for everybody, but it is very nice to have, my buddy's actually borrowing it right now, is a laser level. They're a little more expensive. I think mine was a few $100, but it's something that you can just magnet on to any surface or screw down. It'll cast a laser level that's horizontal and or vertical depending on what you need, and it'll self calibrate so it's just perfectly level. So if you're going to be installing things like shiplap inside or cabinets or anything that you want to be straight, while you can use a level or measure off of certain points, it's especially nice to have a laser if you're working in a house like this one that I have, because nothing's plumb or level in there, and so it's just nice to give me a strong base of level. But like I said, a good quality level will get you all the way there. It just might take a little bit more time. Okay, one other thing I want to talk about very quickly is blades for circular saws or for chop saws, depending on what you're using. So you need to pay attention to what style blade you have. If you just buy your circular saw and use the blade that comes on it, it might be a very coarse blade or one with few teeth. So the teeth are not very frequent around the edge, which means it might cut very fast, removes a lot of material quickly, but it's often a much more aggressive and messy cut, and so there's a lot more tear out. And so if you're getting a new blade, just look at the tooth count on it, or the finish, or I guess the purpose of it. So this is like a finished blade, so it's a higher tooth count. It's a much more clean cut. It won't be quite as fast, but when you're building things that you care about the appearance, basically anything other than framing, it's nice to have a higher tooth count. And so if you're using a circular saw, similarly, you can get blades that are, significantly fewer teeth than this, that might cut faster, but they won't be nearly as clean. And so, yeah, pay attention to the blade type you have, what material it's for, as well as the tooth count that you have. Now, I just want to finish by saying that regardless of the amount of tools you have, I think the one that matters the most is your head, and a good craftsman, somebody, not myself, can make do with way fewer tools than a bad craftsman, I feel like. And so if you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of tools, maybe you just start with fully manual tools. A drill might be all you need. You can use hand saws, you can use manual versions of anything. You can also rent tools. A lot of the box stores like Home Depot, they have rental tools. If you have neighbors, I mean, most people have some form of tools, and so just get together whatever you have, you can make it work. Oftentimes it's just the speed of completion that's impacted by the tools that you have. So if you guys have any other suggestions, by all means, like I always say, for each project a tool, and for each tool a project. So yeah, I've done a lot of projects this week, so I'm ready to look at some new tools, I think.